Welcome into another episode of Across the Conference presented by Allstate, along with Sydney Staples. I am Ari Temkin. And yeah, this doesn't look like our normal palatial studio, Sydney, because of the ongoing weather issues, aka sheets of ice around the residential streets throughout the Dallas area. Wasn't the safest option to go into studio. So we're doing this remotely. We'll try to make it work though.
You know what? We're making the best of it. It's okay. We're enjoying a snow week now that what this storm has kind of turned into. So I'm excited that we're at least, getting to talk to each other like this.
Yeah, well said. All right, let's start with women's basketball. And, since we last had a show, a lot's happened. I mean, Texas Tech fell to BYU. So Texas Tech, who was going through, a good portion of the season undefeated, has lost a couple of now. Now, they did bounce back and get a big win on Saturday over Utah to kind of reaffirm their position. But we're really starting to see some parity here, Sydney, across the conference.
Then I even look ahead at what this week is going to bring, right? We have number 12 TCU going to be at number 21 Texas Tech. And then voila, we have Baylor rounding it out being at number 22 West Virginia. So when we talk about, the top four in the Big 12 conference right now, we're going to be seeing matchups against both of them here just this coming weekend.
Yeah, and look, I think Iowa State is a team that lost Addie Brown and had quite a slide after being one of the top teams of the Big 12. Audie Crooks has been phenomenal this year, but she missed some time due to injury. And now the emergence of Jada Williams. Williams in the past week is averaging 31 and a half points a game, scored 44 against Cincinnati, a career high. So, they've been looking for somebody else to step up outside of Audie Crooks, and that appears to be Jada Williams. And the other one, Sid, I wanted to mention is, Kansas has really struggled on the women's side as a program that has had, two top recruiting classes in back-to-back years, and they're starting to play a lot better too. Jalea Davis is one of them, five-star recruit. They've needed kind of some of these gals to emerge, and for Iowa State and Kansas, two teams that have had disappointing starts to Big 12 play, they've started to figure some things out.
I mean, Jalea Davis, she's averaging 23 and a half points just from last week alone. Okay. She scored 25 of those points and set a new career high with 8 rebounds in KU's 80-69 victory. And then let's look even more so 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocked shots whenever it came to actually winning the Sunflower Showdown. So I look at Kansas and a Jalea Davis and am encouraged when I see a performance like that. But I want to toss it back to a Jada Williams and Audie Crooks. The fact that I have seen Audie Crooks everywhere on social media, in the media, the fact that I'm seeing Pat McAfee bring her up on his show, her returning from injury, scoring 17 points in only 18 minutes. Hello, that's incredible. She's keeping her double figure scoring streak alive. And when you have a team like Iowa State and a player like Audie Crooks and who she is, the recognition and attention she's getting, I see a Jada Williams go, is this a potential under the radar person for us, considering the fact that she had a career high 44 points? I mean, it's exciting what the Cyclones have going on over there.
Yeah, and you look at the standings. I mean, you've got Baylor at 8-1 in conference play. TCU is on their heels at 7-1. Two teams certainly expected to be there. Texas Tech now at 7-2 and 7-2. And then you've got a handful of teams, West Virginia, Utah, and Oklahoma State with 3 losses. So I mean that to me is sort of the big picture Big 12 standings conversation. I don't know what the Big 12 champ is going to have, but feels like 2 to 3 losses will probably be the max unless things, go really south. So, I mean, you're looking at this point, a West Virginia team that's been good but has 3 losses already in conference, probably needs to hold firm right there if they want to be in the race for a Big 12 championship. And then, Texas Tech, not much room for error now with 2 losses in conference play, and TCU and Baylor kind of at the lead with the 1 loss.
Last week we talked a lot of swim and dive and the East versus West, et cetera. We even, we're chuckling about the NBA All-Star game. But what's surprising or not surprising is the fact that Arizona State, and Houston all recognized in Big 12 swimming and diving with weekly honors. But it's Arizona State and Arizona that is really cleaning house, if you will, with most of those accolades.
Yeah, it was an off week for swimming and diving following the Big 12 East and Big 12 West meets. And so sort of a quiet week on the swimming side. Do you want to run through some of the awards for this week?
Of course, Arizona State is taking home the men's swimmer of the week, the men's newcomer of the week, women's newcomer of the week, and even women's
Wow.
co-swimmers of the week. Like, I'm out of breath just saying that. Okay. But, women's co-swimmers of the week, I did say that plural because Arizona is also there. And not even to mention, the men's diver of the week coming out of Arizona. And then there's Houston rounding things out with the women's diver of the week.
All right, we got a busy show today with a lot to get to, including a huge weekend matchup this upcoming week, the big meet in wrestling for the Big 12 season. And in fact, Iowa State wrestling coach Kevin Dresser joins us later on in the show as well. So coming up, we'll get into wrestling and a huge meet this weekend and kind of get you caught up on everything going on. But we also this past week had the start of Big 12 competition on the mat for gymnastics. And, we saw Utah kind of take its place firmly atop the Big 12 with a win over Iowa State. Arizona State knocking off BYU. Denver over West Virginia. And Arizona did not have a conference meet this week. They beat Towson, but, we've already featured Abigail Martin from Arizona, who's, really becoming an incredible all-around athlete for Arizona. And I think when you look at this, it's Utah at the top. It's the Red Rocks. We've talked a lot about them, but maybe Arizona or Arizona State could give them some really good competition when it comes down to Big 12 play.
I'm liking what I see out of the Wildcats, okay? It makes me want to get out there and compete for them in Tucson. But, Abigail Martin, the fact that she did so well in the all-around, the fact that she had a 9.95 on floor, it's cool that we can say we interviewed her just a few weeks ago, and we can say that, we were there. We talked to her before it all really took off for them in their gym program.
Didn't you once say you could barely do a cartwheel?
I can't do a somersault. Let alone a cartwheel. So,
well, you threw your name out there for joining the Arizona gymnastics team. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew what they were getting into.
Listen, they could teach me a lot. Okay. So recruit me. How about for a day? Let me be one of their student athletes. Let's see what I could pick up from there.
All right. Coming up next, we go under the radar and we talk wrestling. Get you caught up on everything going on in the world of wrestling and what is coming up this upcoming weekend. A huge showdown in Stillwater. That's next. With Sydney Staples, I am Ari Temkin. You're going across the conference, powered by Allstate here on Big 12 Studios. Across the conference, presented by Allstate here on Big 12 Studios. I am Ari Temkin, along with Sydney Staples. So great to have you with us as we zero in on wrestling, Sid. And, Sunday, February 1st is the big match. It's Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Gallagher-Iba. Last year, it was Oklahoma State winning at Iowa State in the regular season. Iowa State then took home the Big 12 tournament championship in Tulsa. Both finished in the top 5 in nationals. So these are two national title contenders yet again. Iowa State, number 3 in the NWCA coaches poll. And they have been stacking up wins, including a 29-7 dual win over South Dakota State. This following Kevin Dresser, his 100th dual win, 42-0 thrasher over Northern Colorado and Saturday before a win at South Dakota State on Sunday. So Kevin Dresser, Sid, will join us in the final segment of today's show. But basically the entire Big 12 regular season comes down to this duel between Oklahoma State and Iowa State on Sunday.
I think this is something that Coach Dresser lives for, okay? With his extensive experience in wrestling in general, the fact that he coached in the ACC, coming back to Big 12, where played, but now coaching in it. This is something, I think this is a moment you live for. I think this is a matchup that you work for an entire season up till that moment to prove who your wrestlers are, what your program is. Wishing Coach Dresser the best.
Yeah, and look, 3 matchups to identify, 125-pound matchup, the 174-pound matchup, the 197 matchup. Those would be elite matchups with national championship contenders on both sides of that for 125, 174, and 197. All right, Sid, as we do each and every week, let's identify a Big 12 athlete flying under the radar. Who do you got this week?
Ooh, Tess Heald, okay, of K-State women's basketball. Now, the fact that she's coming off the bench to average 28 points per game, she's shooting 69 from the field and over 85% from the foul line. She's setting records for points in any quarter. she's somebody that when she's playing, we're seeing a lot of promise. But Ari, I say this, that she's my under the radar player, knowing that she's come on the radar for some other reasons. Tell me more.
Yeah. Pess Heel has been a huge bright spot for a Kansas State team that has not been as good as we were used to seeing. And, unfortunately for her, she signed a professional contract with a team in Australia. And because of that, basically the NCAA is questioning her eligibility. So K-State's been forced to have to sit her. So she is on the bench right now, not helping. And that is leading to Kansas State getting blown out at home by Kansas over the weekend. So hugely disappointing. When what we're seeing right now across men's college basketball, where you've got players that have played and signed professional contracts that are playing. Now, Charles Bediako basically had to have a court step in order to make him eligible, but he signed a professional two-way contract in the NBA and for the G League and is somehow playing right now for Alabama. Just really disappointing for one of the future players who hasn't even played professionally, just signed a deal to play after this season, and they're not allowing her to be eligible. Just shows how inconsistent the NCAA eligibility process can be at times, and it's disappointing, and hopefully it gets figured out because she's a big-time baller.
All right, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Let's toss it back to wrestling. Who do you got, OSU or Iowa State?
Feels like Iowa State. With Oklahoma State going on the road last year in Ames and getting the win, I think Iowa State returns the favor this year. They are, at this point, feels like the number one team in the conference. And look, Oklahoma State's 5-0 in conference. They steamrolled Missouri, who we thought was a team that maybe could be part of a three-headed monster. They beat them badly on Friday, winning 9 out of their 10 bouts. So clearly the two dominant forces in the Big 12, Iowa State and Oklahoma State. Give me Iowa State. You agree, Sid?
I do. The fact that they're ranked 3rd in the country right now, and again, maybe this is that recency bias, but hearing from Coach Dresser, his confidence in his wrestlers, it would be a struggle for me to bet against him in the Cyclones.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will, of course, be recapping that meet on next week's episode. But let's hear from the Iowa State wrestling coach, Kevin Dresser, who's got one of the best wrestling teams in the country, ranked 3rd in the NWCA coaches poll. Kevin Dresser is next. Along with Sydney Staples, I'm Ari Temkin. You are Across the Conference, powered by Allstate, here on Big 12 Studios. Back here across the conference, presented by Allstate on Big 12 Studios. She is Sydney Staples. I am Ari Temkin. And this week we sit down with Iowa State wrestling coach Kevin Dresser in advance of Sunday's duel between Iowa State and Oklahoma State. And Sid, what stands out to you about what Dresser has to say?
Just him talking about the atmosphere. When you have some vengeance and you have some revenge to get, it only further fuels my answer of I'm taking Iowa State this weekend.
A wrestling program at the top of the food chain, and they've got great fan support, great fans. It's a lot of fun. This one's going to be Oklahoma State. Gallagher Ibo's also gets full, so will be a lot of fun on Sunday. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right to Kevin Dresser, the Iowa State wrestling coach.
Welcome back to Across the Conference, everybody, and please welcome in Kevin Dresser. He's the head coach of Iowa State Wrestling. And Coach, I want to know, what has the journey been like as the Cyclones wrestling head coach since 2017?
Yeah, it's sneaking up on. We started our 9th season this season, so we knew what we signed up for. We had a so-called rebuild, and we feel like we've been progressing and going in the right direction. We've got a good squad this year, and so we're pretty healthy. And as a coach, to be really healthy and have some good quality guys in your squad is a good formula for where we're at right now.
Those guys who wrestle for you, what are the qualities of them? Who do you have to be to wrestle for Iowa State?
Well, obviously in the Division I world, there has to be a certain component of athleticism or skill to get on our radar, anybody's radar. And then we really try to look for kids that love the sport of wrestling, because it's a very difficult sport. It's very demanding, especially at the Division I level. I tell these guys all the time that, they're the pro athletes of folk style wrestling. There's no higher level than Division I wrestling. So you guys are the NBA, you're the NFL, you're the Major League Baseball. And so we need to have guys that really love and understand what it takes to be good at this level. And that's a big commitment. And so, you get the raw material of a good athlete and then a kid that really loves wrestling. And that's kind of our formula.
Who would you say you were that as a wrestler when you were at Iowa?
Well, I was that guy that, obviously I had enough athletic ability to be pretty good, but, I got into a good room and a great program with Coach Gable and very competitive. And I was a competitor. And so, when you put all that together, you have a recipe for winning. And it was just a really good experience for me. And I was very driven, even as a high school athlete. I did things that nobody else did. And I think that's what probably got me noticed. And then I was really willing to do whatever it took to get what I wanted at the end of my career. So it was a good experience.
How do you compare that experience when you were at, wrestling for Iowa to now as the head coach at Iowa State, that little in-state rivalry there?
So you try to draw from the experience, your own experience, and just getting to be around. I was around so many, NCAA champions and Olympians and world team members. When you're in that environment, and you see all of your peers and the people you travel with and you go to lunch with and you go to breakfast with, you see what things what they're willing to do and not willing to do, and you see the toughness that they possess, and as an individual, if you're willing to put that kind of time and effort in, you're going to get rewarded at some level. You never know how much you're going to get rewarded. But I do believe that, hard work works. And so you try to bring that to I try to share as many experiences of just being around really, really good guys and trying to create that environment. And that's always been my number one goal from the time I started coaching high school, was put together a really, really competitive, tough wrestling room, and things will work out.
How did coaching at Virginia Tech back in the day in the ACC prepare you for the Big 12?
Well, when we started at Virginia Tech, we were last for a couple of years. And so, obviously we built that up. I had a lot of great assistant coaches, administrators, fans, and we built that program up. And 10 years ago, we finished fourth in the nation and got a trophy. And the Virginia Tech job's a great job. It's a great place to coach. It's a great place to raise a family. But the allure of, I grew up an hour and 10 minutes north of Ames, Iowa. And I grew up watching Iowa State. And I understood the bigness of the job and the importance to the fan base of the job. And so that was very challenging to me. I knew that there was a high bar here, but I was ready to do a high bar. So, obviously learned a lot at Virginia Tech. Everywhere I've been, I was a high school coach at two different places. I learned a lot at each one of those stops. So, I felt like I was ready to do this. And, we're doing it.
Does it excite the inner child in you? If you think back on who you were growing up, 10 minutes around campus to now, it really is you're coming back home to it?
Well, that was, just getting around people that I grew up with and, my family. I left in 1988 from the University of Iowa, and I went out east for 29 years between two high school coaching stints and then Virginia Tech. So I was out on the East Coast for a long time. But again, maybe just the kid in me remembering everything and all the great memories of growing up in, going into every restaurant and every bar and every pub and seeing wrestling on TV all the time. That doesn't happen in many places. There's not many places that you could go that it's just constantly in front of you all the time. And that was exciting to me.
Awesome. What's the best part of wrestling in Hilton Coliseum?
Oh, just the fan base. And, it's 15,000 plus, the size and the energy and the noise. And, luckily we've got to the point where we've got a product that we fill it up a lot, and if we don't fill it up, we get really good crowds and it's a loud place. And, obviously we just had a big meet November 30th with the University of Iowa in a really exciting dual meet, no matter what team you were pulling for. It was really good entertainment value. And I tell our athletes all the time, you're there to entertain. Those folks are paying money. You've got to entertain. And, I felt like we did. Even they did in a lot of situations.
What weight classes should fans and people that are going to be tuning in to Iowa State Wrestling, who do they need to look out for on your squad?
Well, I would say hopefully all 10. I'm greedy. Hopefully all 10. But obviously we got the number 1 ranked heavyweight, 285-pounder in the nation and younger Bastida. Rocky Elam at 197 is ranked first or second. Anthony Ichimandia is ranked second or third. Again, depending on what polls you look at 141. Those are the 3 guys that probably have the highest ranking. The Frost brothers are both in the top 8 at their weights. And then, Vinny Zervin at 157 is in the top 8. We've got some guys. We've got some guys that can do some really good things and have been doing great things. So, we've got, I think, 4 more weekends of regular season play and or competitions, and then we go to the Big 12. So, it's going fast. Only 4 more weekends left.
What excites you about what's left on the schedule? What do you have circled that you can't wait for?
I think anytime you get a chance to compete and make it real, and you come off the scale and you got to compete 2 hours later, is I like real reps. I always tell them the biggest competition of the season is the next competition. So we have Northern Colorado next Friday night here, and that's the biggest competition of the season. Now it's natural to look at following weekend on Sunday, February 1st. We got Oklahoma State. They'll be ranked 4th. We'll be ranked 3rd most likely. In Stillwater, I'm sure they'll sell it out. They hold 12,000 plus. So it's natural to get, look ahead a little bit into that environment. But, we've got Northern Colorado, we've got South Dakota State, and I think we've got Oklahoma all before we get to Stillwater. So we got to keep our eye on the ball there.
Coach, if you were to leave us here with one word that describes the Iowa State wrestling program, what would it be and why?
I hope it's consistency, because I think consistency is probably one of the hardest things to teach college kids or get college kids to understand is, trying to be the same guy every day at practice. And then when you do that, you're the same guy every weekend when you compete. So, I hope we can get to the reputation where, that if you shake hands with an Iowa State guy, you're going to get a consistent, tough effort every time.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time, and we wish you luck throughout the rest of your season.
Great questions. Thank you.
All right, Sid, there you have it. Great work. Kevin Dresser, the Iowa State wrestling coach, joining us here. Cannot wait to be recapping and watching that match with Oklahoma State and Iowa State on Sunday. Should be a fun one. All right, thanks, of course, to Sydney Staples. I am Ari Temkin. This has been Across the Conference, powered by Allstate here on Big 12 Studios.